This podcast is for general information only. It is not intended as a substitute for general healthcare services. If you have medical conditions, you need to see your doctor. Use of this information is at the user's own risk. Welcome to FitRx with Dr. Greg Dennis. Join me as we challenge the standard sick model of healthcare. This is your source for everything health, wellness, prevention, fitness, biohacking, and more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of FitRx. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis, and I'm here today with another physician who is an anti-aging doctor. He really has a mission to help people defeat disease, reverse aging, and live longer. He has a practice in New York City, and he's been a keynote speaker for groups like the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He's appeared on TV shows like The Doctors, The View, Fox and Friends, and more. His name is Dr. Michael Aziz, MD. He will be talking with us today about his most recent book called The Ageless Revolution. 10 hallmarks of aging that hold the secret to defeating disease, reversing age, looking younger, and living longer. And so that's just kind of right up our alley that we typically talk about here on the show. So excited to see what he has to share with us. Dr. Aziz, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so before we get started, anytime I interview a physician, especially that does what you do, and it sounds like we almost have kind of similar stories. We were both in kind of traditional medicine and got out of, saw that it didn't work very well and got out of traditional medicine and now kind of more in the wellness space. But I always like hearing those stories. And so tell us briefly, if you will, about kind of what you used to do, how you saw the light, and how you transitioned into kind of being an anti-aging doctor.
Yeah, so I've been in practice for over 30 years now, and I was a traditional doctor for 10 years. And I share the story, my story in my books, the first book, The Perfect 10 Diet, and my second book, The Ageless Revolution, that I felt that I was able to help some patients a little bit, but I was not able to help them a lot. And I realized the failure of traditional medicine to go to the root cause of disease, and how I felt dissatisfied with the practice of medicine, and felt that patients are not getting a lot better. We're just putting a band-aid on many of their problems. So I had to retrain with the American Academy of Anti-Aging and Functional Medicine, hormone replacement. I changed the way I practice. I've been doing this for over maybe 15, 17 years. And I learned a lot. It's almost like being a student again in your 30s after you finish all your training. And that was when I wrote my first book, The Perfect 10 Diet, which was very unconventional against many of the guidelines, talking about avoiding fake food. And my second book right now, The Ageless Revolution, about all the advances in medicine, all the things that can make us live a longer life.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very similar story to me. I realized that I had a very large practice and realized that my patients really weren't getting that better, with traditional medicine, even though I was doing everything that I was taught to do. And they just weren't getting any better. And just like you, I kind of took a deep dive into really how to get people better, and just kept learning and still learning. But I'm much better now. I definitely level up.
Absolutely.
Tell us, I guess I want to get into your book here in a second, but tell us about your practice now. What kind of practice do you have now? I know you're in New York City or New York. So
So, we're at the forefront of all the advances in medicine because now patients are leading. Everybody's interested in living longer. Everybody's interested in wellness. Everybody's interested in biohacking. And patients come up with all the test results about how their mitochondria work, their biological age, about hormone replacement, TRT, red light. And I think that's how medicine should go. That's the future of medicine. It's not about, taking care of people who are already sick. It's about wellness. It's about living longer when you're already good, preserving what you have, and live a longer lifespan. And that's what it's about now. My practice has a lot of young people who are healthy, who are really interested in living healthier and a longer life.
Well, let's get into the book a little bit. So the book is called The Ageless Revolution. So 10 hallmarks of aging that hold the secret to defeating disease and much more. So I guess maybe let's break those down. Let's go maybe one by one, talk to us about what, the 10 hallmarks of aging and maybe, of course, what everybody wants to know is how we can reverse those
Sure.
and maybe some practical tips that we can do to make us live longer and be healthier.
Sure. So there's nine hallmarks of aging that were discovered in 2012. And for the first time in human history, we know why we get old, why the cells get old, why we get sick, why we the cells die. So if we can fix the problem of why the cells deteriorate and why we get high blood pressure, why we get diabetes, why we get cancer, that can solve the aging. I mean, we can treat aging as a disease. And during the writing of the book, three more hallmarks were written, and that was in 2022. So there are really 12 hallmarks of aging, and I discuss all of them. But for simplicity, I made them 10. And in the Ageless Revolution, I target all the hallmarks of aging. This is the first book on the market that targets all the hallmarks. And to my surprise, there were many weapons at our disposal, from medicine to supplements, that can target aging on the cellular level, change our biological age. And I just had to assemble all the information for the readers. So there's a lot of information to digest, but I think we can age in a totally different way now that we can target the hallmarks of aging and now that we have the weapons against them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about those if we may. I mean, can you talk about what those hallmarks are?
So, for example, one hallmark that a lot of media is talking about is gut health, which was recently added. So, gut health is so important for longevity that we're not taking care of our gut in the United States. We're eating a lot of food that's inflammatory in nature. We're eating a lot of processed food, vegetable oils. We're not eating enough fiber. We're not feeding those bacteria in our gut. In our gut live about 36 to 40 trillion bacteria. We have more gut bacteria than cells in our body. And if we're not feeding them correctly, they're not going to take care of us. So we're not eating enough fermented food. We find countries that live a very long life, the blue zones and beyond the blue zones, they eat a lot of fermented food. We don't do that. In fact, we eat things that harm, that lead to a growth of the bad bacteria in our gut. And that's why right now colon cancer is an epidemic in men below age 50. It's like the number one cancer for men below age 50 because, again, we're not taking care of our gut bacteria. We have a problem in obesity. Again, gut bacteria plays a huge role in weight control. It has to do with our mood. They make serotonin. So we have a huge problem of depression in this country. And that's just one of the hallmark that I target in the book.
Other than give us some examples of maybe some fermented foods or maybe some other things that can improve the gut biome.
Sure. Well, you have yogurt, you have kefir, you have fermented vegetables, you have kimchi for people who don't like yogurt or lactose intolerant. They can have kombucha. A lot of choices to have. The point is to have not only enough fiber, but also to have probiotics. And this way we can feed the good bacteria to have good gut bacteria because good bacteria also produce vitamin K2, which prevents heart disease. They open the arteries. They prevent the deposition of calcium in the bones. And also the gut bacteria make a product called urolithin, which is kind of the energy of the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the battery of our cells. That's another hallmark of aging, that as we get older, the mitochondria don't function very well. So you want to keep your mitochondria functioning. And one way to keep the mitochondria functioning is urolithin, red light, NAD that you hear a lot about the celebrities doing. So you have to keep your mitochondria working for the cells to work efficiently.
Yeah, and I hear a lot about mitochondria, mitochondrial health, and stuff like that. So let's kind of go back through those a little bit slower. So you mentioned the red light therapy. Talk a little more about that, like kind of in more practical terms. How can people get that? I mean, what in your studies have you shown I guess the best improvement? And that's probably hard because it's maybe hard to look at, actual mitochondrial health, but what do you recommend specifically?
No, actually, there are tests now. You can have a test to check your mitochondria just with a swab, and they could tell you how much of your mitochondria are working, 30%, 40%, 50%. And the mitochondria need to work for the cells to work. So think of your cells like a cell phone that needs to be charged. If your cell phone is not charged, it's going to die. So if your mitochondria are not charged, the cells are going to die. So that's another hallmark that I touch on in the book. And the mitochondria need to be fed. And one way to keep the mitochondria working, again, is gut health, taking care of your gut indirectly by eating fermented food and probiotics. And that will lead to the mitochondria working. I also use a red light. We have to use a red light with 850 infrared. So I use that 3 times a week, about 20 minutes. I expose my whole body. I cover my eyes. I cover my thyroid. And that's a good way to keep the mitochondria working. NAD is another supplement that's very much popular right now. People are taking supplements. You can also do a blood test to check your NAD level, and NAD also keep the mitochondria working. So there's a lot of things to keep the mitochondria working efficiently for a longer time for us to age in a different way.
Um, you've mentioned a couple of times a probiotic. Are you do you recommend taking a probiotic on top of also eating a lot of fermented, foods?
No, I don't recommend that because I think the best way is not the solution is not to take a pill. Anti-aging is not about taking a pill and you're gonna live forever. It's about your lifestyle. The first 150 pages of the book are the things that you have to do, the reader has to do, and the other 150 pages is the doctor. So the problem with probiotics that you buy from GNC or Vitamin Shop is that they're not, we don't know really their level of efficiency. We don't know if they're going to survive the acid in the stomach. We don't know if they're standardized, so it's not a good thing. You have to keep your gut bacteria healthy by eating real food, eating fiber, having fermented food, eating having probiotics in food, again from yogurt, versus just taking a probiotic pill that you don't know if it's going to work or not.
Okay.
And if you take too much probiotics, you can have small intestinal bacterial growth, SIBO, and that's not a good thing either.
Are you in the book? Do you talk about fasting or intermittent fasting? Are you a fan of that?
Yes. So another hallmark of aging, and I'm glad you brought that up, is the accumulation of old cells. In our bodies, we have young cells and we have old cells. The problem is the old cells not only do not work, but they disrupt the young cells. They secrete cytokines and inflammatory protein that make the young cells don't work. So I kind of give an example in my book, like think of a new technology company where a lot of young people are efficient in using the technology and Instagram and the computers, and a lot of very older folks that don't know how to use the computer. The problem is not only those older folks are not functioning, but they're also disrupting the young people with gossip and all that stuff. So we have to get rid of the senescent cells or the old cells. And one way to get rid of senescent cell, the easiest way is to skip breakfast 1 or 2 days a week, like on the weekend, just doing brunch and dinner. So the body is like saying, oh my God, what is that person doing? He's starving himself or she's starving herself. So the body starts to eat those dead cells, the senescent cells. And that's way to get rid of senescent cells. And that's very important for also for anti-aging. So intermittent fasting has been shown to get rid of the senescent cells and has been linked to longevity. And I talk in my book about something else. In the Middle East, where they fast for Ramadan, which is like the Islamic months where they don't eat, they just eat from like 7 p.m. till like 2 o'clock, and after this they don't eat all day, no fluids.
Mhm.
They eat massive amounts of sugar, but it's kind of intermittent fasting. The rates of cancer in the Middle East is 85% lower than Europe and the United States. So intermittent fasting not only gets rid of senescent cell, but it can also reduce the risk of cancer by a good 85%.
Do you think that's interesting? Do you think that's more due to the intermittent fasting? Do you think do they eat less processed foods over there? Do you think it's a combination of both?
I think in the Middle East they eat a lot of sugar too, and they smoke a lot. But intermittent fasting, doctor, has been shown to prolong life in many species, and not only in like rodents, but also in monkeys. So there is no reason that it's not going to work in humans too. There are some studies that say, oh, it may increase mortality. We don't really have human studies. I mean, people can do intermittent fasting, but if you're going to eat fast food after that versus eating a salad and good healthy protein, of course you may increase mortality. And there's different types of intermittent fasting. So there is one you don't eat for days, and that's kind of dangerous. You could lose muscle mass. But I think skipping a meal once in a while, just eating 2 meals a day, or just doing brunch and dinner on the weekend is perfectly fine. It's very good. You drop your weight, you drop your sugar, you get rid of the senescent cell, you reduce the rates of cancer. many, many benefits.
I know it's been a while since I've looked at all these, but one of the other hallmarks of aging is telomere length, and I'm sure you probably talk about that. How can we maybe talk about that for a minute, and then maybe how we can improve telomere length, or if we can?
Okay, so another hallmark of aging, we're kind of covering one by one here,
Right.
is the shortened telomeres. So for the people watching us or listening to us, the end cap of our chromosomes, there are segments called telomeres. So think of them as like the end cap of the shoelaces. And every time the cells divide, the telomeres get shorter. Every time the cells divide, the telomeres get shorter till eventually there is no more telomeres and the cells can no longer divide and the cells die. So if you have longer telomeres, you have longer life. If you have shorter telomeres, you're going to have a shorter life. So of course, it's in our benefit to have longer telomeres. And one way to have longer telomeres is, of course, reduction of stress. Stress shortens telomeres. Taking fish oil. Many of us are not eating enough fish, but if you eat fish 4 times a week, or take a fish oil 1 gram a day, you can have a longer life by 4 years. Again, by having longer telomeres. Vitamin D is very essential. So people who don't have enough sun, if you take vitamin D3, 5,000 units a day, or even 10,000 on some days, you can have longer telomeres. And there are supplements extracted from astragalus root that make the telomeres longer. And I talk about all this in the book to make how to have longer telomeres. So that's one of the hallmark that we have to target.
What are some other ones that kind of give us some highlights? I know people can find specifics in the book, but kind of give us some highlights of things that you feel like are important.
Sure. Another hallmark of aging is the accumulation of old protein. Again, we in our cells we have some protein that are damaged, they are misfolded, they're not functioning, and they also disrupt the cells from functioning. And one way to get rid of the damaged protein, the misfolded protein, again, is back to intermittent fasting, is to skip a meal, and that's how you can get rid of the damaged protein. So, a lot of things are kind of intertwined as regard the hallmark. That's why I kind of summarized them down to 10 versus 12. There's another one, which is the secretion of inflammatory markers, cytokines from the senescent cells. I guess once you get rid of the senescent cells, the old cells, guess what? There's no more cytokines that are going to be inflammatory in nature. So that's why they're down to 10 from 12 because they're kind of redundant. The list goes on as regard the other hallmarks as well as regard um, accumulation of other older particles of the cells, not just the protein, but the organelles. Again, you get rid of them by also skipping a meal, by intermittent fasting, caloric restriction.
Most people, some people want to know the specifics. Other people just want to know, hey, doc, just tell me what to do. Tell me what I can do to live longer and be healthiest. And you've mentioned obviously, clean food, which I preach all the time. You specifically, said fermented food to for good gut health, maybe some. Intermittent fasting. Obviously, I preach a lot about exercise. I mean, exercise is essential for good health. Without going through all the hallmarks here that you have in your book, but what else would you tell people like here, these are the things you need to do to be healthy? I mean, maybe the foundational things, and then there's maybe icing on the cake, which is, that's kind of how I view it, maybe,
Sure.
which is the
Yeah.
red light and NAD and, those kinds of things. But if somebody just asked you, doc, just tell me what to do, like what do you tell them how to live? Like, what are some kind of
I
summarize
think
for
that people have to give themselves a score of all the minus things, all the negative things they do. So if they smoke, they give themselves a score of -1. If they go to bed late, they give themselves a score of -1. If they eat processed food, if they eat chemical, they give themselves a score of -1. And they really have to go to zero. So once you go to zero, you start the positive, eating a balanced diet, staying away from low fat and low carb, a balanced clean diet, stay away from chemicals, nitrites, artificial sweeteners, seed oils, vegetable oils, trans fats. Exercise would be on the list. Going to bed early, um, limiting stress. And then once you do all those things and you're doing the positive, then you need a doctor to help you with your anti-aging, with the supplements that can lengthen the telomeres, with the medication that can make you live longer. There are medications that can prevent heart disease and stroke, like metformin. A lot of metformin is an anti-aging drug.
you?
So another hallmark of aging is epigenetic alteration, and that's all the bad things that we do that make our DNA act in a different way. So if we eat, for example, bacon and sausage, which are very popular right now with keto and low carb, well, nitrites damage the DNA and they lead to cancer. And we just talked about the high instance of colon cancer in the United States in young men. So now people are losing weight and they're eating more bacon because they think that's good for them, when in fact they're damaging their DNA, just like smoking. It damages your DNA. That's epigenetic alteration. You're making your DNA work in a different way than it's supposed to work.
Hmm.
So people have to address their lifestyle, but they also need a good functional doctor who understands aging is a disease to go to the next level, to help them with the supplements, the medication, the peptides that can help them live a longer life.
And that's a great segue into my next question, which was, what can people expect when they come to see you? I mean, do they obviously you talk about all these things, but do you? I'm assuming you start off with a bunch of blood work, kind of see where they're at. Talk us through kind of what it looks like when patients come to see you.
Well, there are a lot of blood tests you could do, routine blood tests covered by insurance, but a lot of blood tests are not covered by insurance. And that's what this book is about. It's taking medicine now to the next level. I mean, now you can check your biological age, you can check your NAD levels before you go overboard, because there is a risk also if you take too much NAD that there's a possibility of cancer. That's a possibility. You can also measure the amount of the length of your telomeres. There's a tests for that. So there's a lot of advanced tests. There are tests to check for different types of cancer, 50 types of cancer, the Gallery test. So we do the basic. It's all about education, getting them to understand all the bad habits they do, and then start them slow, because nobody can go from 0 to like 100 miles an hour overnight. You really have to go a slow process, which is the same process I went through. I did not reach that level for anti-aging overnight. It took me, I ate a lot of wrong food before, listening to guidelines about eating low fat, eating muffins for breakfast, thinking they're healthy, low fat, lean meats, bacon, and thinking that's good with all the nitrites, eating margarine that was recommended by the American Heart Association, full of
Right.
trans fats. So it took me a very long time to reach that level, to reach level of, oh, you know what, you could do this, you could do NAD, you check about your mitochondria. That's a very different level. And I have to get my patient to that level to understand that aging is a disease that can be also treated. You cannot just accept that you're getting older and it's okay.
You've mentioned a little bit of what I refer to as biohacking, with maybe the red light therapy, and I talk a little bit about that. Do you have maybe some favorite kind of biohacks?
Yeah, in my book, a doctor, I don't like the word biohack, because
Okay.
biohack is based on things that may or may not work. And the Ageless Revolution is about all the scientific things that work. So I
Mhm.
try to do my very best to share with people, like biohack is just a general term that people use a lot, but I like things that really have been shown to work for people and to work in studies. So there are a lot of supplements. We know fish oil gives you 4 years of longevity. Many people are not taking fish oil. Taurine can give you 7 years if you take 2 grams a day. But again, you have to check your blood pressure, because taurine acts like a diuretic and people blood pressure can drop. We know red light makes the mitochondria work. We know that fermented food, then even the GLP peptides, a lot of talk about, Ozempic and Monjaro, and a lot of doctors are saying, oh, stay away from that. No, I mean, if you're only 300 pounds, you need to lose weight. There's nothing wrong of getting an Ozempic or Monjaro prescription from your doctor, as long as you're fixing your diet and you're eating vegetables and you're going to exercise, you're eating enough protein, you're going to lift weights, and you're going to fix your diet. You're going to lose weight, but you also cut your risk for stroke and heart attack by 20%. So it's not that I'm against medicine. I'm sharing with people everything
Mhm.
at their disposal to live a longer life.
What's your thought on not necessarily the GLP peptides, but other general peptides? Because I get asked about peptides about every single day. I mean, the growth hormone peptides. I get asked about, BPC 157. I mean, do you incorporate any of those into your practice?
Yes, it's a Russian patient who introduced me to peptides. And the problem is that most doctors in the United States and Europe don't know anything about peptides, but
Hmm.
peptides are miraculous. I mean, insulin is a peptide,
Hmm.
morphine is a peptide, Ozempic and Monjaro are peptides. So those are the peptides you buy from the pharmacy, from CVS or Duane Reade. But there are peptides that the people are not aware of, like tesamorelin, for example, is a peptide that was used to treat HIV patients with HIV lipodystrophy. It was Agrifta, so that's to build muscles. So a lot of people cannot afford $7,000 to get that, to get leaner, to get more muscular, but you can get it compounded to give them tesamorelin. BPC, helps heal after soft tissue injuries. But in the Ageless Revolution, I concentrate on the peptides that are linked to longevity versus to heal tissues. So there are peptides linked to longevity, such as epetalon.
Hmm.
Studies from Russia show also prevents stroke by 20% and heart attack by 20%. What does epetalon do? Lengthen telomeres. Back to, so again, in the book, I talk about you can do basic, you can do fish oil, you can do vitamin D, you can do astragalus root, but you can also go to a peptide like epetalon to lengthen your telomeres. GHK copper is another peptide that is good for collagen, helps heal tissues, but it also keeps the stem cells alive. Another hallmark of aging is the loss of stem cells, the baby cells we have in our bodies that can become any cells you want them to be. And by the time we're age 60, all the stem cells are gone. And that's how we age. There's no more regeneration. So one way to keep the stem cells alive longer is taking GHK copper as a peptide.
What about other things that are maybe up and coming since you study this stuff? I mean, a lot of what we talked about, with the exception maybe peptides, but the food, the exercise, the fasting, those are all kind of foundational things. Uh, are there any new kind of upcoming things that people may not know about that you're excited about as far as within the
Sure.
anti-aging community?
Yeah, I think we're really behind when it comes to stem cells and exosomes, and that's kind of like it's sad that people have to go overseas for that. Exosome are great because that's how the stem cells talk, so they can help people with arthritis. Some people who take exosome once a month, they have no symptoms. It's better than taking ibuprofen or methotrexate. There are peptides that's still in the experimental stage, like GDF11, linked to longevity, but we don't have human studies on that. There's a protein that goes down as we age called clotho, and clotho is linked to longevity. And you find a lot of people now, those are the biohackers, the one you find them on Instagram and Facebook talking about clotho. So I share all this information in the book because I don't want people to do any crazy things. I want them to do the scientific base, but they have to be aware of all the possibilities in front of us in the anti-aging arena.
Hmm, okay, interesting. Okay. Well, anything else specifically about the book that I didn't ask that you just want to throw out there, or anything on
I
just
think,
anti-aging
yeah,
in general?
sure. I cover a lot in my book, but I think the most important thing that people have to take from our conversation today is we have to think differently. We have to think of aging as a disease. Don't accept when the doctor tells you, oh, your hormones are gone, your testosterone is down, or, for a woman in menopause, it's part of getting older. No, there's bioidentical hormones you can take to replace your hormones and to have the hormone of an 18-year-old. There are advances in medicine, as we call, when it comes to beauty, not about Botox and fillers, but all the lasers, all the microneedling to get new collagen, the peptide, the stem cells, the exosome. And I think the most important thing is not only to get rid of the negative habits, is educating people about all the possibilities, but also have a positive attitude and to enjoy life because you got to enjoy life after having all those extra years.
What would you say? I assume it's probably the same up there as it is here, but a lot of people just don't know that there are other options. They go to their regular doctors, and the doctor just, of course, keeps refilling their medicine, and then they go to us. They send them to specialists, and they get more medicine, and but they never get well. They never uncover the root cause of things, and they stay in what I refer to in this sick cycle of
Yes.
medicine, and then. Every now and then, one of them will get out of that, and they find me, or they find someone like you, and they're like, "Oh," and I'll tell them things like they can reverse, a lot of these things we're talking about, and let's try to get you off some of this medicine, and I had one actually just last week that said, for 15 years, no doctor's ever told me that. Like I've never had this kind of conversation with anybody, and which is really sad. So, how do people kind of get out of that, I guess, sick cycle because they just don't know any better and they're just doing what their doctor tells them. So they go to their doctor, so they don't know any different. So how do people kind of get out of that?
I think the only way to get out of that sick care model of healthcare is education. People have to get educated. The patients have to get educated. The doctors have to get educated and retrained. But I think a lot of young people now on Instagram are watching The celebrities already are doing all that stuff. The celebrities are already doing NAD, they're doing red light, they're doing all the Morpheus 8, they're doing the microneedling, they talk about fermented food. They're already doing that. But I want to make anti-aging affordable for everyone. And I wanted to make it comprehensive. That's why I've written the most comprehensive book versus just targeting the super rich about the stem cells and exosome. I cover everything in the book from simple things to more advanced things. But I think the point is education. People have to get educated, and doctors have to be retrained, and we have to rethink the way we practice medicine. Unfortunately, the system is broken, and nothing is going to change unless the doctors have a revolution themselves to say, this is not working. I got to practice medicine in a different way. And I think medicine cannot go back. I cannot go back to practicing medicine the way I used to. If I know there is a peptide that can make people lose weight, why can't I give it to them? They tried everything, they can't lose weight. Or if there's a peptide that make them heal fast, if exosome can make women with arthritis feel symptoms free versus methotrexate that's going to damage their liver. So, you can go back once you go to that level.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's really good stuff there. All right. Well, how can people get a hold of you? I know the book, The Ageless Revolution. I found it on Amazon, so I know they can probably order that on Amazon. Is there a website, or what's the best way people can maybe work
Yes,
with
people
you or
can
learn
go
more
to
about
my
it?
website, www.michaelazizmd.com. It's a spelling of my name, Michael, MichaelAzizMD.com. The book is sold wherever books are sold. It's even been picked up internationally. So yeah, they can read the book and they can get educated about all the things we talked about today and start little by little, take baby steps before they go to the next level, next level, next level, till they're at like, all the advanced people in anti-aging.
Very nice. I love it. All right. Well, as we wrap up here, I always ask my guest if they could give us one health tip that could make us healthier today. I know you have a bunch of them you could probably share, but what is one that you would share?
Know that aging is a disease that you can treat. So have a positive attitude to change your health and take the first steps today. Don't delay.
Well, very nice. Well, all good stuff, and I would encourage everybody to check out the book. And appreciate you, Dr. Aziz, for coming on and sharing this with us, and appreciate what you do. It's always nice to find a like-minded physician, and certainly appreciate everyone listening. And we will talk to you next time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to FitRx. I invite you to share this with friends and family. If you would like to contact me, you can visit our website at fitrxwellnessok.com, or you can email me at drgreg@fitrxwellnessok.com.